Okay, this topic is simply called more on systems of equations. Already we've talked about systems of equations. And if you look at the example that I have written below, I have a bunch of different equations. And I've separated, and as the lessons sometimes do, I've separated them by commas. So one equation I have, and I'm going to underline these in blue, is I have RMTM plus 6 equals RDTD. Another equation I have is RM equals 3. Also I have RD equals 12. And I have the equation TM equals 4 plus TD. And what we did in order to find TM and TD, what we did in black, we substituted in some of these values. So in black, I'm going to underline Rm because in this main equation, and we called this one right here the main equation because it's the most involved equation. It's the equation that has the most variables in it. So I know what Rm is. I'll put a check mark above it. I know what Rd is, which is 12, right? And Rm is 3. I'll put a check mark above the Rd. And I kind of know what Tm is. It's 4 plus Td. So in other words, in this main equation, I know 3 out of the 4 variables. And once we substituted those in, I was able to eventually solve for Td, and then everything else falls into place. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go a little bit more in depth on systems of equations. Let's take a look at example 1. Now I've got a bunch of equations again, and notice I've kind of written them on different lines. So one equation is this one right here, that RETE equals RWTW. Then I've got another equation, and actually I got a couple on this line. I know that RE is equal to 200. I know that RW is equal to 250. I also know that TE plus TW equals 9. So again, I'm going to look at this main equation right here, the equation that has most of the variables all in one equation. And what I'm going to try to do, our goal is to try to substitute in what I know in the other equations into this main one so that I can get it down to one variable, and that way we can solve it. So I'm going to take that main equation. I know RE is 200, right? I'm going to put a check right there. I know that RW is 250. All right, so I'm going to start with that. So let's see, RE is 200, so I have 200 TE being equal to, let's see, RW is 250 times the TW. So that's what I know so far after I've substituted in the 200 and 250. Now the problem is though, in the blue equation I still have two variables I don't know. The goal is I want to get this down to one. It'd be nice if I knew what TE was or TW, but I can get that. So for example, and this is really the part that's the extension of what we've had before. I can solve this equation that I put a blue rectangle around it. I can solve it for TE. So down below I'm going to do that. So I'm going to take, let's see, I have TE plus TW equals 9. I'm going to solve it for TE. Let's see, they're adding TW, so I'm going to subtract TW from both sides. I'm just going to try to squeeze that in right there. These cancel then. So TE then actually is equal to 9 minus the TW. So I kind of know what TE is now. So I can put this in right there. Okay, so I'm going to do that. So I have 200 times whatever TE is. Well, TE is 9 minus TW, and it's a couple, so I put in parentheses, and that's equal to the 250 TW. Now I have an equation that just has one variable, TW, and I can solve that. So let's see, I'm going to take 200 times the 9 and 200 times the TW. So let's see, 2 times 9 is 18, add 2 zeros, so that's 1800 minus 200 TW equals 250 TW. Now let's solve it for TW. So since there's only only TWs on the right side, let's get all the TWs on the right side. So let's see, what could I do to that minus 200 TW to cancel it? So add 200 TW, and I'll do the same thing over here, plus 200 TW. These cancel. So I have 1800 is equal to, let's see, 250 plus 200 is 450 TW. Now to solve this, I'm going to divide, since they're multiplying by 450, I'm going to divide by 450. So I'm going to take 1800 divided by 450 to figure out what TW is. And if I take 1800 divided by 450, I find that TW is equal to 4. So now I know what TW is. Now how can I find TE? Well, I can go right back to this equation right here. I can take 9 minus whatever 9 minus whatever TW is, which is 4, to find TE. So TE then is actually equal to, let's see, 9 minus 4 is 5. So TW is 4, TE is 5. The goal of these equations then, or these problems, is to substitute in what I know and eventually get an equation with just one variable left. Let's take a look at one more. Now this time I've written it a little different way, kind of like sometimes what your worksheets are like. So I have all these equations, and the equations are separated by the commas here. So I'm just going to put those in red just to emphasize this. So my main equation, though, is this one right here, the one that's the most involved. And I'm going to substitute in what I know. I know that R1 is 30, so I'll put a check above that. I know that R2 is 40. And then I know that T1 plus T2 equals 10, and probably what I'm going to have to do there is solve it for one or the other. Let's substitute in what I know so far. So R1 is 30, so I have 30 T1 plus 40 T2 is equal to the 360. And I substituted in what I knew in for the equation with a box around it. Now, it'd be nice, I still have an equation that has two different variables, T1 and T2. So what I'll do is I'm going to take that T1 plus T2, and I'm going to solve it for one or the other. And you know what? It doesn't matter what I solve for. I could solve it for T1, I could solve it for T2. It doesn't matter. I'm going to solve it for T1. So they're adding T2, so I'm going to subtract T2. These cancel, so T1 is equal to 10 minus T2. Now I'm going to take that, which is what T1 is equal to, and I'm going to substitute it in right there. Okay? So I have 30 times whatever T1 is, which is 10 minus T2, plus the 40 T2 equals the 360. Now distribute, so I have 300 minus 30 T2 plus 40 T2 equals 360. Now simplify on the left side, so let's see, a negative 30 and a 40 T2. I can combine those are like terms. So what I have then is 10, that's 10. Negative 30 plus 40 is 10 T2, and then that positive 300 equals the 360. Now solve it, keep on solving it for T2. They're adding 300, subtract 300. So 10 T2 equals 60. Now divide by 10, T2 equals 6. So T2 is equal to 6. Now how can I figure out what T1 is? Well, I could go right to this equation. T1 is whatever 10 minus T2 is, or in other words, 10 minus 6. So T1 is equal to 4. And I've solved it for both variables. So all this is a little extension, a little more of an extension on systems of equations.